All righty. You want to wait or just start going?
Yeah, let's wait a little bit. Wait for people to get in.
Okay.
Okay. Got one person in. Yeah. Whenever you're ready, Danielle, you can go ahead.
All right. I hit it. Well, hello, and thank you for joining us for tonight MPPA Master Your Gear session. Tonight we're talking about the Sony Alpha 7C, and I'm Danielle Gill, and I'm a investigative consumer photojournalist for NBC Philly and Telemundo 62. This series was bought because people don't read the manuals, and we're connecting MPA members to the folks who know the cameras inside and out. So, with that being said, let me introduce our guest here, our panelists. Andre Chung is a commercial and editorial photographer and an award-winning photojournalist. He was awarded the 2021 Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights Journalism Award for domestic photography for his work covering the Black Lives Matter movement, in 2020. He has created images for a range of clients, including the Washington Post, NBC News, The Atlantic, the NAACP, and Apple. Twice chosen to work on the official inauguration book for President Barack Obama, his work is also in the permanent collection of the Smithsonian Institute National Museum of African American History and Culture and the History Miami Museum. A founding member of the Iris Photo Collective, his work has always explored people of color and their relationships to each other and the world. He married a girl who encouraged him to pick up a camera, and they live in Columbia, Maryland. Van Wyn received a degree in advertising from Texas State University, where he fell in love with photography and started his career at Sony, selling 8mm camcorders and 2-megapixel cameras. A 20-year Sony veteran, Van has supported photographers at the Olympics, the Super Bowl, the Final Four, and countless other events, trade shows, and workshops. As a senior pro support representative, he strived to collect end user feedback and support professionals using Sony gear, as well as provide training, guidance, and support to any professional who wishes to learn how to use their Sony gear for their work. So with that being said, let's get started.
All right, fantastic. Well, thanks for joining us tonight. And thank you, Andre, for playing with the Alpha 7C. I know Andre had a few assignments that he actually went out and shot with the Alpha 7C. And if you guys aren't aware, the Alpha 7C is a new compact. Actually, let me show you right here. It's a new compact full frame mirrorless camera body that was introduced in about October of last year. It does feature a full frame mirrorless sensor right there with full autofocus, phase detection autofocus, does 4K movie as well as 24-megapixel stills. And of course, it's interchangeable lens as well. So this is actually the kit lens I've got here, which is a 28-60 zoom lens. But I like to use it with other lenses like this nice new little prime lens here. This is our brand new 24mm f2.8. And of course, you can adapt other lenses to it, just like you can adapt to any of our other Alpha bodies. But what you'll notice is, it's a little bit flatter here across the top. It's got a smaller profile than, its big brothers. Like here, I've got the Alpha 1. So you can kind of see it next to each other here, how much smaller and more compact it can be. Of course, smaller is great because you can squeeze it into a lot of different places that you normally wouldn't be able to, but also it's a double-edged sword, right? So it reduces the amount of surface area and space that you have to put ports and buttons and dials. And I'm sure, Andre, you probably have a little bit of experience with that as well.
Yeah, definitely. I really like this camera, but I think the thing that we got to keep in context is that, it's great at what it's built for. You know what I mean? I used it on assignment, like you were saying, yesterday and today, and it performed really well. But I definitely ran into a couple things where I was like, oh, but it was easy to work around. It didn't hem me up at all. And I even shot a little video with it. Unfortunately, I'm still going through the edit. I was going through the edit on this stuff until just now, but yeah, I do like this camera a lot. This is the second time you guys have loaned it to me, and my wife keeps trying to take it from me, and she's not a photographer. And the first time I had it, I went to a party, I guess it was early last month, and it was a bunch of photographers there. And I handed this thing around and I didn't get it back until the end of the party. Everybody loved it. Everybody, it was like, what is that? What is that? You know? And then how do you wait? Oh, okay. You know? So I think I think it's a winner. I do.
Yeah, I think a big part of it is, you know, the first thing that you notice is the size, right? It's much more compact, and that's what the C at the end of the 7, you know, signifies. It's a compact, full-frame mirrorless body, and you know, having that compact size can be a big bonus, especially if you're doing some sort of street photography, or if you're trying to stay a little more inconspicuous, right? Having a giant, you know, camera body with lights and all sorts of things, you know, kind of attached to it, sticking it in front of somebody's face, it's going to solicit a different type of reaction than, you know, having kind of a coy little, you know, kind of looks like a little snapshot camera. And not too long ago, you know, this is what I was shooting with, which is my old Minolta. Is not, you know, it's actually about a little shorter, but about the same, you know, kind of width and height as this film camera. So this is, you know, the journalist tool back then, and it's kind of come full circle, you know, but it crams so much more capability here because you can shoot up to 10 frames per second. With this particular model, you also have the swivel screen. So if you're doing MMJ work where you're kind of, you know, you're the only camera operator as well as the talent in front of the camera, you can get it set up, frame just right, you know, all that stuff pretty easily. And then of course, it's nice and lightweight and compact. So it, you know, when you're packing it and you know, moving to the next assignment or next story, you know, it doesn't have to be, you know, 2 wagons full, you know, dragging behind you of gear. I know a lot of you guys, I've seen you out there doing your job, and that's why you skip the gym, right? Don't forget to skip leg day, or don't skip leg day, because you know those wagons. I know, man, it's it's a chore, but absolutely, you know, in certain situations, you know, if you need the static shot, you can, you know, set it up on a tripod and do that. But the cool thing about having that small size again is you can also stick it on a gimbal and do moving shots, you know, if it calls for a moving shot, or a walk and talk or something like that. And that smaller size is going to let you run on, you know, a gimbal battery for a little bit longer and be able to have a little bit more time to record some of that conversation that you're trying to capture as well. So you had mentioned, Andre, a little bit of video. What were your settings? Do you remember if you're shooting 4K or anything like that?
I was shooting 4K, and I think I was running at, now I'm real kind of set it and forget it with the video. But I'm pretty sure I was running 60 frame rate, and the battery's dead. I can't even check it.
Oh,
Just lost the battery on it. But I've been using it too, though. So
yeah.
But
that's good.
Yeah. I don't exactly remember much. I'll be honest with you. I set it. I matched it with whatever camera, and I just go. So somebody helped me with that a long time ago, and I stick with it. You know.
Nice. Well, and that's another really nice thing about the new cameras these days is that there are a lot of automatic features. You know, focus is one of those things that you used to not be able to trust camera focus very often because the camera would kind of just wander and maybe pick up somebody in the background or something in the background. And now the autofocusing system of the Alpha 7C, as well as some of the other cameras that we have in the lineup, are very good. And you have even articulated settings inside. Let me switch my view over to this one here. So let's do a quick kind of walk around of the camera, I guess. So I showed you how to remove the lens. There's a little button here down below. If you press that in, rotate counterclockwise just a little bit, then it removes the lens. There's a little white dot here on the lens barrel. You line that up on the lens mount, and then just rotate it the other way until you hear the click. Of course, you've got a shutter button here. This is not a zoom rocker like it is on some other cameras like the FX3. This is the on-off switch. So you see right there, has a little on-off. Your mode dial up here, and you'll notice there is a manual exposure, shutter priority, aperture priority, and program auto, as well as a regular auto, and then of course memory recalls here, right? There isn't position on the dial for movie, manual, aperture, shutter, or program. So I do want to show you guys this whenever the camera is on and you turn it to movie dial, if you want to switch this out of automatic, which is the default setting, you'll want to press the function button, which is right here underneath the autofocus back button focus button. You'll see a little menu pops up here on the bottom of the screen. You can still see your subject and everything going on out there in case you need to just start shooting. But if I use the navigation wheel over here and I navigate to the bottom row over in the far right corner, you'll see there's a film strip icon with a P next to it. And so if I select that, here's where I can change between program auto, aperture priority, shutter priority, and manual mode. And a lot of folks that I talk to, they like to shoot in manual mode just so that, you know, the shutter doesn't creep on them or the ISO doesn't creep on them or something like that. So you can definitely do that. Now, actually, what's going to happen is the ISO right now is set to auto because there's a little A inside of a triangle. It's a little difficult to see. I don't know if it'll show up here, but let's see. Camera doesn't really want to. Okay, there you go. There you go. So you see it kind of floats depending on the exposure. So when the camera sees it's dark, the ISO creeps up. That's auto ISO. If I want to change the ISO, there's a shortcut right here on the wheel. So I'll click that, and then I can go in and select an ISO. Now, you'll also notice when I'm on auto, there is a little arrow right here. So I can arrow to the right using the navigation wheel, and then I can actually set minimum maximum. So if I don't want it to go above a certain ISO because I feel like it's too noisy, then I can set that parameter here and it'll stay within range. Same thing with the minimum. If you want to make sure that it's at least shooting at 200 or whatever, you can set that as well. And this is a way to kind of control the auto ISO. Or you can just go over to the left and set manually, you know, what you want it to be at. Personally, I like to leave it on auto, set those parameters. And so I'm going to do that. And then what I'll do, I'll set the aperture and the shutter speed. So the shutter speed is going to be right here on the, should be here on the dial. If my aperture is here, actually it's going to be on the wheel here now. Yeah, out of the box, it's right there on the wheel. Now, on this particular lens, it does have the aperture ring right here. So I can manually set it with, you know, my left hand here. Now, if I switch all the way to A, now the body is going to control the aperture. And right now it's set to the back wheel. Now, Andre, you had mentioned, you know, you were missing a few buttons and dials on this particular body, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, it is. Yeah. It's missing, right? That front dial here, that's normally on, you know, our other alpha cameras, right there, that front dial. You get the back dial and you have a joystick, right? So normally those cameras, you have a little more control on some of these things. So you can actually go into the menu of this camera. Let me flip this screen around so it's not all off to the side here. You can go into the menu of any of these cameras. It's going to look very similar. You can go in and then usually at the end of this second camera tab, you'll see custom operation. And you can actually go in and customize the different keys and dials based off of your own preferences. And so, and it'll remember if you're in photo mode, custom key sets, video mode, custom key sets, and then playback, custom key sets. So there's 3 options there. So I'm gonna go in and change that video custom key set. Maybe I want the rear dial, you know, to be my ISO or something. So then what I would do is I would go to the corresponding, here we go. Corresponding keys, and then I could set, and you'll see there's quite a few things, not just the basic exposure, but a lot of different functions that you can assign to any of the navigation key, as well as the wheel, as well as the trash can button. You see a little C right there. That means it's a custom button. And even the autofocus on button, you can adjust all that stuff.
So can I jump in here for a quick sec?
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that I came across in dealing with the menus, number one, is that the menu was familiar with compared to my other Sony cameras. When I got to drive that A7S III the other day, that has a brand new menu, and that kind of threw me off.
Yeah.
I also didn't realize that if you're in movie mode and you hit function, you get a different menu. Do they all work like that?
Yeah, they all don't work like that. That's a good
Okay,
point.
okay.
Because yeah, it's again, part of my job is to collect that end user feedback. And
Yeah.
so sometimes, I say sometimes, it's pretty much all the time. Photographers out there say, I don't like how this is working. I wish I could do it this way, or it would do this when I, and then we turn around to the engineers and we say, hey guys, can you fix this? And they sit around and they say, well, yeah, and they're in their minds amazing. They can tell us like, well, yeah, that'll take maybe 2 or 3 months to program that, or they'll say, you know what, we need to make some hardware changes. It may take a little bit longer to do that, and so they know immediately almost. And so yeah, the function menu is definitely one of those things that you can customize. Oh, yeah, I did want to show. So yeah, so that's actually right beneath custom key set right here. And so in the Alpha 7R for the S3, the new A1, so basically the 4 newest cameras that we have, when you go into function menu settings, you get 2 sets of function menus.
Got it.
Yeah, and so now the top one, you have a little film or a photo icon, and then the bottom one, you have the film strip for movie. So this can be completely customizable as well. So yeah, if you just want to be able to hit that function button and then have a custom function in there somewhere, then you definitely can. Yeah, and it already kind of has a few things, like you'll see picture profile is here in this corner, where on the stills mode, it's going to bring up your flash settings.
Yeah.
And things like that. So definitely you can go in and change some of these things. Down here is where you would set up your dial and wheel in terms of like, if this was, so by default, this is the aperture and this is your shutter speed. If I want it to be the other way around, I could go like this. And now, aperture variable and time variable are flipped. So now when I kick out of the menu and I turn this dial, now you see this is now shutter speed.
So, what was really interesting was, of course, I didn't read the manual and I didn't dig that deep into the menus, right? But
Yeah.
What ended up happening for me, so there was a couple things with this camera that I want to talk about in actually using it, right? So I immediately learned, okay, no front wheel on this, and no joystick, and a whole bunch of different things, the way it handles in my hand. But the thing that was really interesting is I didn't have the muscle memory. Like when I switched between my R and my R4, I sometimes search for that autofocus button, that type of thing. And I need the cameras to be set up as close to identical as possible, so I don't have to think. But because this camera has a different form factor, I didn't get so bogged down in that.
Oh, good.
And I don't know if that translates to other people or not, but for me, that was kind of a bonus. And
Nice.
I was I'm looking at it from the rangefinder style viewfinder, I'm not looking across the top of the camera. So it just feels and handles really differently. I think the fact that it was really compact, really light, made me want to use it in the first place. I was saying to Stingray earlier before we started that I wish you guys would have sent this to me 2 weeks ago when I was on vacation, because I wanted to shoot a travel story, but I got sick of carrying my cameras around everywhere we went. So I have no travel story, but if I'd have had this thing, I might have had a travel story out of this,
Absolutely.
So it's definitely light and nice like that. When you were showing just now how those wheels are programmable, I've seen that in the menu. I didn't consider it even once, not even twice, not even once,
Yeah.
But while that's definitely useful, what my Johnny on the spot adaptation was okay, this wheel only controls, the aperture. I think that was the default, right? I just switched it from manual to aperture priority and called it a day. And the exposures were good. If I needed to adjust it up or down, I used the plus minus wheel, which was just as fast. You don't have to go into function and do all. You got a wheel, an old school wheel. So
Yeah.
that made it really easy to just adapt on the spot, keep it moving. I didn't want to get in a position where I was thinking too much about this camera while I was working with it. And it definitely allowed me to do that. I do think though that as a pro, if you're thinking about using this thing, you got to keep in mind it's only got one slot, right? And so if you're like a 2-slot, I'm always burning up my cards. You better buy bigger cards, or you're going to be swapping them out. But that helps to keep the size down. So I do recognize that. The battery life was really good on it. I was actually surprised just now that the battery died while I was trying to look up my settings. I mean, it was cruising along. Oh, the other thing that I really, really like, the position of the record button, for whatever reason, is like spot on. I didn't have to fumble around once I was using it, and it wasn't hard to find at all. It wasn't difficult to find. So
good.
Those are a few of the highlights, a few of the things that I kind of was like, okay, this is weird. But all in all, I've had other cameras that I've tried to kind of throw into the mix, and I've just gotten frustrated and pulled out my phone instead, So
yeah. Well, and obviously, like, we'd love to sell lots of cameras. We'd love to sell lots of lenses. We'd love to sell lots of accessories and batteries and all that stuff. But it's a tool, and you got to get the most out of your tool. We do make cell phones as well, by the way, with really great cameras as well. There's a triple camera array on the Sony phones, and there's phase detection autofocusing on the Sony phones too. And you can use, it doesn't have to be a Sony phone, but you can use any smartphone, Android or iOS, to control these cameras too. So if you, again, are one of those MMJs, you are one of those folks who's like, I need to get my images, my files off of this thing and over to the editing desk as quickly as possible, you can beam them over to your phone and then email those out, or use your phone as a hotspot, connect the camera and FTP it to a server. And just because this is, what was that?
You can FTP from the camera?
Yeah.
What?
You can FTP from the camera. Now there's no Ethernet jack like on this camera, right? So let me switch over. There's no Ethernet jack. This is, like you were talking about before, this is where the single card slot is. It's an SD card slot. And you've got a USB-C down below, a micro HDMI. There's a headphone jack all into this third kind of door down here. And then the top door is an analog mic jack for a lapel mic or other type of microphone. There's pins up in top inside of this hot shoe as well. So you can attach all different types of accessories. But what you need to FTP is either use Wi-Fi, or you can actually connect a USB-C to Ethernet dongle to this, if you happen to carry around one for your MacBook. And then you can go in, and the green camera tab is the networking camera tab. And there it is right there, FTP.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I could actually, be shooting. And then when I'm playing back an image, I can tag a bunch. And then I can come in here and then I can batch FTP a bunch of them. What I would have to do, it's not going to work for me because it's going to try to start connecting right away. But yeah, so I'll turn the FTP function on. In here under server setting, you've got 9 different FTP servers that you can set up, right?
Wow. And
these are all the different. So I could have, if I'm using Photo Shelter for server 1, I can go in, change the name, change, the IP address, all that good stuff. What folder I want it to go to, and then my login information all right there. And then I could go into the second FTP profile. Maybe this is, NBC or somebody, and they're like, yeah, send the pictures right away. I can go in and I can set that up here. And then all I have to do is make sure that the little radio button on the side here is selected for which server I want to use. And then I make the connection and transfer my files. So it's really a really powerful little camera. A lot of entry level, I don't want to even say entry level, but it is an entry level, kind of price point for a full frame mirrorless camera. you've got a lot of capability here. And you know, of course, that FTP server section there, that's where you put the IP addresses and everything, and then you'll need to go in and, you know, tell the camera like what kind of images you want it to send. So for instance, I like to shoot RAW plus JPEG, but I only want to transmit the JPEGs. So, you know, I'd make sure to select here that I only want to send the JPEGs. And then, you know, up here, if I want all the images to transfer, I can turn automatic transfer on. And then every time I hit that shutter button, it's going to transmit a JPEG. Or I turn that off. And then what I'll do is I'll go through, review, you know, the images, and then I'll tag them. And then I can go into this FTP transfer. Of course, no memory cards in here, but this FTP transfer option here in this menu, and it'll bring up, you know, kind of parameters. Do you want to send all pictures? Do you want to look at like all the pictures that you shot today, or all the pictures on the card? And do you want to just send the locked pictures, or do you want to send all the pictures, or, you know, ones that have failed because the connection was lost, or a lot of different options. And there's a lot of ways to get that set up as well. So I think I saw a question come in from the chat. Or, oh yeah, no. Yeah, if you do have questions, definitely put them in the chat. We'd love to answer those if we can. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of capabilities in this camera. Andre, do you FTP?
I do FTP, but not from the camera.
do you ingest in like Photo Mechanic?
I do. I got a
Lightroom,
little bit of a convoluted. I don't know if it's convoluted or not, but I ingest in Photo Mechanic, capture there, and then I edit in Lightroom. And then depending if it's going to my photo shelf, it'll go straight from Lightroom. But if I'm going to FTP, I'll typically move it out into a folder and then FTP from Photo Mechanic. Unless they want a whole folder, then I'll use FileZilla or something. But
gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, and
interesting concept.
Yeah, that's great.
From the camera.
You can definitely use Photo Mechanic with the Sony cameras. It'll see and ingest the files very well. One thing is though that the raw, if you are shooting RAWs, the raw thumbnails that are embedded inside are a little bit smaller. They're not full size. So what I would recommend for folks who are using Photo Mechanic is to shoot RAW plus JPEG. And it doesn't have to be a large JPEG. It can be a small JPEG. But that way, Photo Mechanic has a bigger, you know, file to look at and give you a better looking thumbnail. And it helps speed along that process of ingesting and getting your selects and all that. But yeah, you can, you know, one of the cool things about FTP is that you can do it pretty easily on your laptop. So I went into the App Store and I downloaded a $5 like FTP server app. I think you mentioned FileZilla. There's a FileZilla server. I think it's free even. Yeah, and you can set up your computer as an FTP, server, and that way, as you're shooting, you can either wirelessly or via USB, connect to your computer, have it auto transfer your files while you're also shooting to the card, and that way you have that redundant backup in case something happens to the card or the camera goes missing or something happens to the camera.
Is that like a kind of, does that operate kind of like a workaround tether? Because I've been using Imaging Edge to tether, but that sounds like it kind of works the same way, except it will actually write to the card.
Yes, so we'll write to the card. Yeah, you can use it in lieu of Imaging Edge, the desktop applications, if you don't like that and you want to use another set of software. Imaging Edge works just as well, and it's free, of course, as well. So, but it's a little more rudimentary. It's a little more basic for ingesting and editing and stuff. And so, it's a nice tool, but again, there's a lot of great pieces of software out there that you can use, like Photo Mechanic, like Lightroom, and some of these Capture One. Capture One does allow you to do remote tethered shooting. And of course, you can even apply presets and all sorts of stuff, control the camera, see a live view from the camera, all with a USB cable. And it's, I'll even use the charging cable from my Mac, just unplug it from the charger, plug it into the side of the camera here, and then it works for the data transfer just as much as it does for charging. So you can totally do that. And the USB port is actually faster to transfer photos that way. So if you are shooting remote in a studio, let's say, and you're processing both the RAW and the JPEGs, I would use a USB-C to USB-C cable to my laptop, and it's going to transfer up to, I want to say it's up to like 10 gigabits is the maximum throughput of like USB-C. So it's even faster than Ethernet, which is like 1 gigabit, right? So again, there's lots of different ways to do it. The nice thing about FTP, though, I'll say this, is you don't always have to send all the files, right? So if you don't have that auto transfer set on, you can shoot and then select from the camera which ones you want to push over to the computer. And then from there, you can then edit, those and FTP those out from whatever program you're editing. So yeah, definitely cool. Yep.
I was just going to ask you, if you're in that FTP server mode, can you set it so it automatically sends the whole take while you're shooting, or do you have to shoot and then? Oh, you can. Okay.
Yep. So if that's how a lot of sports photographers that are shooting on like sidelines and stuff, that they'll prefer to do that. If they have a team where you've got an editor up and sitting at the computer, and then the photographer's out there shooting. It makes the work a little bit faster. If it's, if that's the name of the game, is the speed of which you can get the image in, cropped, leveled, whatever, and then sent out, you definitely can do that. Yeah, so really cool features here. The other thing is that you can also control it via smartphone. I think I'd mentioned that before as well, but there's a couple different things that you can do. You can, number one, actually like use it like a remote, where you'll see a live preview on the phone screen, and you'll be able to adjust some basic things, usually like shutter speed, ISO, maybe aperture, white balance, and then be able to trigger the camera, and then it'll automatically transmit, a JPEG over to your phone for you. So you have a copy on your camera, and then one on your phone as well, or works with tablets or iPads as well. So you can set that up. So yeah, if you're again in a studio situation where you're like, what, I want to have these on a bigger screen, maybe I have an iPad there, you can shoot, have them sent over to the iPad, and then your client can see a larger, kind of version of the image, instead of just having to see it on the little screen or the little tiny viewfinder that, I don't know, I never use this viewfinder because it's so small.
I use it. I'm still a viewfinder guy. I can't help it.
Yeah.
I was using the screen though. And one of the things I like, especially over my other cameras, is that screen will flip, and it's got 360 degrees of rotation. It comes out, I was using it overhead. I was using it by my feet. I was doing a little bit of everything. With my other R series cameras, it doesn't have that same level of movement. So I did ride.
Yeah, that's it.
Roll that joint overhead, ain't nothing happening. So, but at least I can shoot from my feet,
Yeah, and that's something, again, I do like having that, and I think that's more of a hallmark of having the flip out to the side and rotate around. This is more of a hallmark of the video centric kind of use. The Alpha 7S III, of course, has that as well, and then the ZV-1 camera that I have somewhere around here has it too. And it just makes it easy, to frame up your image and have the camera pointed at you. But yeah, I find I use this a lot too on this particular camera. What's nice about it is it does have a touch function as well. And the touch function is somewhat limited, but if I want to touch to select an autofocus point, I can totally do that. And it's much easier to do that than even, using a joystick. You don't have to worry about moving the camera around as you're like clicking a joystick. If you just, tap lightly and the focus will pull, and go to the subject that you want. You can even set up the focus so that it tracks. So if it sees an object or a person there, you can have it track that person once you tap on their face or tap on them. And it works moderately well depending on the situation. we've again, we support a lot of sports photographers, and if the entire team is wearing the exact same uniform and they have pretty close to the same haircuts, like it's going to be difficult sometimes for the camera to determine like which player sometimes that you wanted to track. But luckily it's easy to just do another quick tap right there, and you can even go in the camera settings and adjust how sticky you want the focus to kind of stay with the subject and how fast you want it to pull focus as well. Unlike the other cameras in our lineup, I think that this feature came in the R4 first, but you can go into these autofocus settings. Actually, I think it's under this one. Yeah, right here. So autofocus transition speed and autofocus subject shift sensitivity. And these used to be just basically like 2 settings, fast or slow, and that's why people were like, nope, I'm not using the autofocus. It's just not refined enough. Fast is too fast, slow is too slow. And so we told our engineers that, and they said, okay, well, we can make more. And so they added, 7 levels of focus transition speed. So if you want it to be slower, obviously it says slow down here, faster over on this side. So you just kind of adjust, how fast you want it to focus. I don't know if I can show
Hey,
this.
Vin, can that be added? Let's say you're trying to do some really quick run and gun work, but making it, kind of a slow focus pull, and you're just by yourself. Can that be added to the function menu that you were showing us earlier that kind of pops up from the bottom?
Yeah, so if you want to adjust the speed and bring up that menu, the AF transition speed. What are you
Right.
talking about?
Yeah, can that be added to that little function menu?
Well, let's try it out. I want to say yes. I don't remember everything. Oh wait, we're going to the function menu. So function menu, I'll go down to the video and let's do this one here. So let's see here. So there's 12 pages I see right here. There's 12 pages of settings that I can adjust. So the first one, of course, is if I want to shoot in Super 35 mode. I should note that, we have one mount. So all Sony, lenses are E-mount, they'll fit onto this camera, regardless of whether they're made for full frame, where you see FE right here, or they're APS-C or Super 35. You can snap it on there. The lens will communicate with the body, and it will automatically crop into this Super 35 mode unless you force it to ignore that or to force it on. So that's what that setting will do, right? So we'll go into focus. You can even select, like, if you want to change a different eye that the camera is focusing on. Oh, I prefer the right eye or the left eye. I prefer both eyes, but you can prioritize left eye or right eye. I guess that's maybe for pirates.
Probably.
But no, yeah, so you can do that. You have also face iframe display, so you can have it set up to where it'll show you a frame overlay. But face priority, focus assist, and here you go. Yeah, so autofocus transition speed is right here. So I'm going to go ahead and select that, and it's right there. So you
Cool.
do have that ability. Let me back up out of this, and then now when I hit the function menu,
We have a question from David Robert Newman asking, he's interested in hearing from Andre about how he's using the A7C at work. What is he doing the same or different compared with other Sony Alpha bodies? So Andre, how would you answer that?
Yeah. So like I said, I just used it on assignment yesterday and today. And I think where it would really fit in, because I use the R3 and an R4, and so they're the bigger, heavier megapixel cameras. I do shoot in low light quite a bit, and I think that this camera at 24 megapixels is going to perform for me a little bit better in the low light. I again like having it just to knock around. I try to keep a camera in my truck all the time, and this would be the one. This would be the one versus what I have in there now, which I'm not going to say what it is. And it's really nice to be able to just grab a camera and go. You know, you never know what you're going to see. You never know what's going on with it. When I was using this on assignment, like I was saying earlier, in terms of the function, maybe I don't even need to go over that again. I'm trying to answer specifically your question. But in terms of the function, I did have to make a couple changes. Like I was saying, I typically shoot on manual with auto ISO. With this one, because of that single wheel, I found it a little bit trickier to shoot like that. I have some of the Sony Zeiss lenses, and I have a couple of the G Master lenses. The G Master or the G lenses, I think in general, all have an aperture ring. When I put those lenses on it, I was able to use the back wheel of shutter. Does it automatically go to shutter with the aperture ring wheel?
Not necessarily. Yeah. So if you're in shutter priority mode, both dials, or the back dial will always be. But,
Okay.
yeah, you can go into the menu and flip it.
Okay.
So by default, I think it wants to have your aperture on that back dial.
Okay. Because
Yeah.
that's what I kept finding. It was the aperture. Now I know you can set it. I might change it up. I would change it up, you know, if I was using it so that I can have my own muscle memory working a little bit better. Again, the one of the big beauties of it, I thought, was that monitor on the back. I'm old school, you know. When I started shooting, cameras didn't need batteries, right? And now we have acres of menus and whatnot. And so I still look through a viewfinder, and I was looking through the viewfinder with this, and it was fine. It's not as good as my other cameras, but it was fine. But that monitor was great. I don't know, is it a different level of monitor? Is this an improved monitor?
Yeah, it's a higher resolution LCD, and I think that's where the trade-off kind of happened, right? We shrunk down the body, and that means the viewfinder shrunk down considerably as well.
Yeah.
And if you have one side by side with another alpha, you can see right away, like when you put your eye up, the frame's pretty small in the viewfinder.
Yeah.
And so if you're like a person who is always in the viewfinder, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. You're gonna find yourself, you know, pulling the camera away from your face to look at that screen. But that's why they beefed it up, is having a better screen, you know, on that one. Now there are some new iterations of the 7R, you know, out there that have an A on the end. So the Alpha 7R 3A and the R and the 7.3A, and those they switched to a new LCD as well. Everything else in the camera is kind of the same. There's maybe a few little updates, but for the most part the same. But yeah, so that was one thing that we kind of got a lot of feedback, constructive criticism about is getting a better screen, you know, on the back of these cameras. And you're starting to see that. You're starting to see that now.
Yeah, that was noticeable right away, David. It was I made that transition quickly. Like and the thing that's really funny is I didn't find myself fighting with this camera. I just found myself being kind of nudged over here, nudged over there on different things. But because it's already so close to what I'm using, it wasn't a big struggle, you know, and I was able to do a lot of things intuitively. I didn't miss any pictures. I know that much. I was just going through the take, and I'm like, okay, everything's here. Everything's, the focus is there. I didn't have anything out of focus, but I think that my R bodies have a better autofocus system just from looking at what I was doing. The single shot I felt was not quite responsive enough, so I went to a consecutive shooting. I'm sometimes one or the other, depending on what I'm doing. But I found this to perform a little bit better for me, just putting it on a consecutive medium. I don't know what they call it. Consecutive mid. Okay.
Yeah.
And that worked fine. There's a new thing in the playback menu though that it took me a minute to figure out what was going on, and I guess with this camera, when you look at, if you do a burst, it will, in the playback menu, it kind of stacks them when you review them and you see the little edges. And I didn't know what it was at first. I thought it was like, oh, geez, did the sensor shift on me or something like that? It took me a minute to kind of figure it out. But it didn't. It's just telling you that you shot a burst. I don't think I need that personally. But, you know, maybe that's more of a prosumer type of feature. I think
I think I forgot to mention, Andre, that you can turn that feature off.
Oh,
So yeah, for some reason by default it is turned on. But yeah, so you go back into the camera menu and playback. You know, usually we're just looking at this one because here's where you protect images and then you delete them and
sure.
rate them and all that stuff. But there's actually 3 pages here of playback settings. So if you go over to the right, it's some enlargement stuff. Okay, so the last page, there's display as group right there. And that's what you want to turn off.
Ah, okay.
And then each picture will show up as a single frame, and you just advance either with the wheel or with the jog wheel up here as well.
Okay, okay.
You know, go back to how you're used to it.
Which one of those buttons works as the minus button after you blow it up?
So down is going to be your shrink to. So the icon you're looking for is this little checkerboard.
Got it.
It's supposed to be a symbol of like thumbnails. So imagine that being like shrinking out to thumbnails. And then of course, right here at the AF on up above it, you see a shortcut of a magnifying glass. That's to zoom in.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So on other bodies, you have the second. There you go. On the other bodies, you've got, you know, the zoom in here, and then there's the checkerboard right there, the zoom out there. So it's, you know, but once you punch in just once on a picture, you can also use the wheel to zoom in and out more, and then you click it to move around the picture. Or if you have the touch turned on, you can drag around on the screen as well.
That's why I like doing these things. I always find out something I can use. I always news I can use on the.
I have a quick question actually. So I want to see if you had anything about the tracking, the auto tracking. If you want to follow a subject, is that, I saw that under video mode. Is that, did you use that, Andre? Or
yeah, I did use it, and it works really well. I almost felt like it worked better in movie mode than it did in still mode. It was grabbing faces a little bit better. I sometimes had to put the box on a face in still mode, but in movie mode, it just snatched it right up. And one of the things I've seen with all these cameras is that once it's in movie mode, if you're when it locks on, it locks on. And we were talking about that AF transition speed. I already turned mine down slow, so it'll be like real silky smooth because I'm silky smooth, right? But but
like that.
It grabs it and it moves it in real nice. And yes, so that's, did I answer your question, Daniel?
It did. I was just, and also I guess for Van, for, you know, folks out there who are doing more broadcast, what is kind of the advantage of this camera?
Yeah, so again, I think the first thing that, you know, customers look at whenever they're looking at this particular alpha is that physical size of it. You know, being able to have something small and lightweight that if you are going to mount it to a gimbal, it's not going to run down your battery on your gimbal as much, you know, and then if you need to place the camera in more kind of tight situations, you know, on the dashboard of a car or something like that, this could be one of those, you know, B cams or even an A cam, because you know, it has all of the great image quality that you expect out of the alpha lineup in a much more, you know, small and compact body. You know, you can flip the screen out to the side. If it's up in the dashboard, you can still see, you know, the menu and the framing and everything, unlike some of the other cameras that we have in the lineup. Couldn't do that with. But yeah, I think also, you know, you can always build out, you know, the camera with a cage and make it larger, add, you know, more to it. The hot shoe has those extra pins, so you can put an XLR adapter on here if you need XLR, you know, balanced audio. Again, you can plug a USB-C to Ethernet adapter if you want to do FTP. You just build it out, and it's easier to start small and then build it out to what you need than to have this big rig and say, well, it's just too big to use and you can't shrink it down any. So that's really, one of the key things I think about it in general. But again, for those situations where you also want to be kind of inconspicuous, Andre, I think, has the one with the black, plate on top. Mine's silver here, but it looks like, oh, you know what? It's a step up from this old, dinosaur. And so I think if you're out in a touristy area, people aren't going to look at you as much with what they think is a dinky camera. Oh, that's probably not that worth as much. And so you become less of a target, less, of a, hey, I'm a photographer out in, in the wild. So I think that's, again, one of the big things about, a lot of it's the alpha cameras in general. But if I'm rolling around with the Alpha 1, obviously that's, a bit more kind of conspicuous than something like, the Alpha 7C.
Can you lock down that micro HDMI port? Can you lock it down? Like, is there like a place to have like a locked in HDMI? No. Okay.
No, not unless you have a cage or something.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you definitely need like a strain relief and but yeah, so it is a micro HDMI, and those are notorious for breaking. If you're constantly moving the camera around and stuff, you got to be careful, and that's why we do make cameras like FX3, FX6, and others. If you need SDI connections and things like that, you have that option too.
I feel like on this camera that adding too much to it kind of defeats the purpose of it. I think the real strength, the real place that it shines is that it's small, that it's compact, and that C designation, totally get it. I've got friends who use the APS versions of this, kind of same form factor, and
yeah.
I personally just want full frame, and it doesn't look like it's really any bigger than those APS cameras at all.
Yeah.
So I've been jealous of them in that they're using a smaller camera, but not so jealous because they don't have
anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and yeah, it's a full 35 millimeter sensor in there, so you're getting all the benefits of having that extra real estate of the sensor. Better dynamic range, better color reproduction,
Mm-hmm.
easier to find wider lenses. I get a lot of customers are like, I need a wide lens, and then it's with APS-C, you're already fighting the 1.5, crop factor.
Yeah.
But now we've got a camera body that's roughly the same size, maybe slightly larger, but has the big battery now rather than the old batteries, which were horrible. And that reminds me of another thing that I wanted to mention with this USB-C port is the fact that you can, and of course I don't have it next to me now, but I've got a battery backup for my smartphone, right? And it's just a USB-C port on the bottom of that. And if you use a power delivery compatible USB-C phone brick or battery bank, you can actually power this off of that and shoot all day long. I recorded like 4 hours straight, just like of a bookshelf, just to see if it would do it. And it did. It was like it ran out of card space before the battery even internally like lost one of the little hash marks because it was running off of an external power source.
Nice.
And the other great thing about that is it produces less heat inside of the camera as well. So then you don't have to worry about overheating as quickly. I always like to pull the screen out just for that as well, because the sensor and the processor just kind of right up against the back of the camera here. So if you are in a hot environment, that's a trick that you can do, is just to pull the screen out, get some air circulating behind there to cool off the body a little bit.
Okay.
Running off of the battery bank.
Yeah.
It's a lifesaver.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, what you just did just reminded me when you close the screen and you have the screen facing the back of the camera, that doesn't shut the screen off, does it, to save any battery? Yeah, like that.
It does.
It does.
Yeah.
It will kill the power to the screen.
Yeah, it shuts off the power to the screen. And then, there's a little proximity sensor right next to the viewfinder. So when you put your eye up to it, the screen here turns on.
Yeah.
And you'll be able to shoot. But yeah, if you're pretty good at like shooting from the hip, you just turn that screen around, close it up, and just go, run and gun like that.
Okay.
Yeah, and it'll save a little bit of battery life.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Because I found myself doing that a few times, and yeah. Okay. Nice.
Yep.
The other thing I'll say is, Stingray was asking me about it before. Now, I got this 24-1.4 on here right now.
Yeah.
Truly a sexy lens. And he was asking me, how's the balance on it? And
Yeah.
it's a little front heavy, but I didn't get any cramps in my hand or anything like that. When I didn't bring any of my kit over, but when I was using my Sony Zeiss lenses, much better fit.
Yeah.
And really easy to handle. I've got a 35-1.8 and I've got a 55-1.8, and those are just great on here. But when you guys first loaned it to me, you sent me over some of those pancake lenses, like the new ones that you have on there, and that is butter right there. That is a great fit. That handles really well, and again, that's what was on it when I had to wrestle everybody for the camera at that party.
Yeah, it's really great. The new lenses, we call them the baby G's. They're G series lenses, and we have a 24 millimeter f2.4. I'm sorry, 2.8, and then we have a 50 and a 40 millimeter f2.5, and they're all roughly about the same size. This kind of maybe like inch and a half, maybe tall. They all have the gearing around the aperture. Let me switch to this. There you go. It all has, kind of hard metal gearing. This is all metal construction as well. So you have the focus ring kind of out front here, and then the aperture ring here. They're great for keeping the camera light and small, and again, inconspicuous as well. We do sell this with a kit lens, which is this one right here. And it's kind of the same size if you, once you have it kind of folded up, because this is a folded lens. So this one is 28-60, and it's a variable aperture. So it starts at f4, and then once you're zoomed all the way in, it goes to an f5.6, but it keeps it really small. And then you have the zoom capabilities. So this would be, the wide angle here, and then I can zoom into 60, like that. So similar to kind of what we had in our APS-C line of cameras, the 16-50, but a little bit, less motorized in terms of this portion of it, which honestly, it's one less thing to worry about, going out on you. So a really nice, kind of small, again, compact camera. And if I bring my old film camera here, you can kind of see it from the side by side there. It's
nice. That Minolta was not a big camera at all.
This is what I started on. This is my first camera.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this, it's roughly the same size, and now this is a 51.7, but you get that.
So if you got the baby G lenses, which are the OG lenses?
The OG, so there's quite a few. I mean, with regards to 50 mils, we've got, the first one I ever bought myself with my own money was the 55 millimeter f1.8 Zeiss lens, which I love that lens. I still love it.
Lens. That's a great lens.
And I even stick it on the 7R4, and I was thinking, this was made a long time ago. It may not hold up to the 60 megapixels of 7R4. I was wrong.
It does.
That is a great lens.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's compact too. It's a little bit longer than these baby Gs, but and it doesn't have the physical aperture ring, but it's got really great color, really great contrast to it, and a lot of that's the Zeiss, coatings and optical design that we license from them. And that brings us to another point, actually. So Sony's got a lot of native lenses. We've been growing our native lens line quite rapidly over the last few years. I think we're up to like 61 native lenses now.
Wow.
And you know, we do make our own G and G Master, you know, are our top premium kind of in-house lenses. And then we also have the Zeiss as well. And the Sony Zeiss are collaborations between us and Zeiss engineers who we license their coatings and some of the optical designs that you see into our Sony made lenses in the Sony factory. Now, since I don't know, maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, Zeiss started to actually manufacture their own glass. So there are Zeiss lenses out there that are not associated with Sony. And those are the ones that are named after birds, I think, like the Batis and Otis and Loxia and all that. And they offer different kind of experiences when you're shooting them, as well as kind of optics and things like that as well. So, but those are not associated to Sony, unlike like the 50 f1.4, you know, Zeiss, which is a beautiful lens as well. Yeah, there's but the 55 still one of my favorites. One of the very first ones that I was like, got to have that.
Yeah, definitely. I read somewhere that like the main difference in emphasis between the Sony Zeiss and the G Master lenses is the G Masters are primarily about bokeh and the Zeiss are about resolution. Is that correct?
So G Master has always been, you know, tomorrow's lenses available today. Like we over-engineered, you know, the sharpness, the bokeh, the autofocusing performance, and everything in that line of lenses. It is the best, and you know, ever since the very first G Master lens till now, like, you know, they keep pushing the technological advancements in that lineup. G lenses were kind of inherited from old, you know, when we acquired Minolta, Konica Minolta's photography division, and that was their premium recipe, right? So their premium lens line was always called the G line. And so we continued a lot of that, and we continued a lot of the really amazing technologies that they developed on their own. And we, you know, added some tweaks here and there, and you'd see like certain coatings and stuff, you know, kind of continue through that lineup. But yeah, I mean, the Sony Zeiss lenses, I wouldn't say they're, you know, any more focused around resolution than any of the other lenses that we offer. You know, all of our full frame lenses are capable of being shot on any of our full frame bodies at this time, even the 7R 4, you know, which pushes that 60 megapixel, you know, envelope. Even that 55 millimeter Zeiss that we made, gosh, what was that, like 7 years ago, like can handle 60 megapixels, which is pretty amazing. But you know, I think when you think of G Master, yeah, bokeh is one of the first things, and then of course that pleasing autofocus, the pleasing you know, drop off between sharpness and what's defocused, and then of course fast autofocusing. Zeiss, I think when you think of the Sony Zeiss partnership, there's a certain kind of color and quality to the images that are produced through those lenses. So they're all about the contrast, handling the contrast and the coloring with their multi-coating, multi-coats on top of the lenses and stuff. So there's definitely some hallmark stuff. So if you're, you know, used to shooting Zeiss from back in the day on, you know, medium format, you know, I've had so many customers that switched over from medium format that were like, oh, you guys have Zeiss lenses? Yeah, that's all I needed to know.
Right.
I was like, yeah, I'm totally going to Sony.
I mean,
So, yeah.
That's interesting because I do have both styles of lenses. I use 4 different lenses. I've got that 20-1.8, the 35-1.8, 55-1.8, and the 135-1.8. And I can't say anything bad about any of that glass at all. And even though that 20-1.8 is a G, that thing feels like a G Master right there. It looks fantastic. I made some of my best images on that lens.
Nice.
So yeah, I can't complain. I didn't try it with this camera that you guys loaned me, and I got to send it back tomorrow. But you know, maybe another time. I wanted to put that 20.
You'll have your own soon.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Yeah, and definitely for those of you that are watching, you know, this feed, you know, that's what we're all about at Sony, is giving that, you know, personal kind of attention to the working professionals out there. And thank you guys for doing your job, you guys and gals. And you know, we're just here to help support, you know, the good work that y'all are doing, making images, making movies and videos out there, and spreading news, and all that. And so, you know, the cameras, you know, there's a lot that they can do, but ultimately we want our cameras to just become an extension of your hand, you know, extension of your vision, and for the camera to kind of fade away and just become a natural kind of tool that you can use to capture, you know, the world around us. And I think that's really one of the key things is how do we do that better? And that's with, you know, the feedback that we get from our professionals. If you're interested in Sony and wanting to switch over, reach out to me or one of the Sony's, you know, support reps around the country. If you don't know who they are, then reach out and I'll get you connected. And we'd love to do, if we can, you know, a demo if you want to try out some stuff before you invest in your own kit, or you know, figure out how to get you into Sony financially, and you know, with the inventory and everything else as well. We'll help you find that stuff.
And I will say, Van, that's how I ended up switching too. It was David Snyder out here in my region, and
Nice.
I reached out to him, and we had a great conversation. We talked about the type of work I did, how I like to shoot, and then he said, "Okay, so tell me what kits you'd like, what you'd like to try." And I laid it out, and I had it in 2 days in my hand. Let me hold it. Can I say how long he let me hold it? He let me hold it for several weeks, and then even better, he did help me in terms of timing, figure out when to make my switch as well. And he kept some money in my pocket. Yeah, I mean, I like I was telling you earlier, Van, the Sony Pro service is way better than what am used to. And I've had you guys have put more cameras in my hands just to try and kick around in the last year and a half since I switched than, you know, in the last 20, 30 years, you know. And it's been really fun, and I do feel like I'm supported, and you know, I got the rep's number on my cell phone for a change. How about that? You know,
Yeah.
So good stuff. You got whoever's thinking about switching, definitely get your test drive in, and you'll see for yourselves.
Hi, I just wanted to put out a call for anybody who had any questions for Andre, for Van, if you want to talk about any cameras. I have a quick question myself while I'm here. Just about, you know, you can also, you know, just talk about for folks who do broadcasts, who do news, there's a Sony product as well for us folks.
Absolutely. Yeah, we make a lot of different types of camera. I know I specialize more in the alpha side of things, but we do make some amazing broadcast cameras, and some great hybrid cameras as well. So we mentioned, I think maybe in the earlier part of the presentation about the FX6 and the FX9. You know, a lot of folks are out there utilizing those cameras in a hybrid fashion as well, as both broadcast or cine type of cameras. And the great thing about those, the FS and FX series cameras, is they're also using the Sony E-mount system. So you can use any of these beautiful Sony lenses, and it's very adaptable as well. So I've seen folks out there using adapters because, you know, financially, it's very difficult to just switch out an entire kit, right? All of your investment in glass and bodies and everything else. So sometimes you got to do it in stages. And so, you know, adapters are sometimes an okay way to do that, depending on how the lenses will perform on the body, and how it impacts your work. Obviously, you have to make that decision. But there are people out there that do that, and so you know, definitely, you know, we can even I think we even may have some of those adapters available to try out as well. If you're like, you know what, I'm ready to switch into mirrorless and get all these great benefits of the eye tracking and the frames per second and the exposure tracking and like all that stuff. But I'm not ready to let go of my glass yet. There's no reason. I had a customer when I think it was the R3 or one of the R series that had just come out in this. I was at a trade show and a gentleman came up and he had the body and he had an old lens on. It was a Leica lens. And he had snapped it on there. He took my picture and he showed me, he zoomed in to like the lapel on my sport coat. And you could see the fibers of my clothing. and I said, sir, what lens is that? And he was telling me, oh, this is a 44-year-old lens. It's older than you. And I said, yes, sir. That's older than me. and he said, nothing wrong with this lens, except, I just manual focus it. And I said, man, you do a pretty good job of manual focusing that lens and stuff. And he was using focus peaking, which is another great feature, to bring life to an old lens that he had, kind of built a relationship shooting, I think, wartime photography back in the days when he was doing that. So there's definitely, a different lenses give you different looks. So there's not always a reason to upgrade to the latest and greatest unless, there's certain features or functions that you really need to have, and that's how we kind of approach it too, as well as like, if it's going to work for you, that's great. If not, we might have something that can help you out and have better performance. Hopefully that's the case.
I don't see any questions yet. So, is there anything else you guys want to talk about the A7C? Anything
Wow,
we missed?
we
did cover a lot.
Yeah. The hot shoe, the multi-interface shoe, as we call it, is a pretty amazing, kind of piece of hardware. And I have it here without the cover on, but I always recommend to have this covered. There's a lot of electronics under here, so you don't want to get moisture in there. You don't want to, you kind of want to keep it clean. If sometimes, a customer will tell me like, hey, I'm getting this error that says incompatible accessory, but I have no accessory up here. And it's most likely there's something going on up here where either something is shorted, maybe you got some corrosion. If you've been shooting in, obviously salty situations, it can corrode those. So always, keep your cap with you. You can buy bags of them online for really cheap and just, pop it in there when you're not using an accessory. But this accessory allows us to communicate with quite a few things. So we've got different flash units that you can pop on top of here. They'll communicate the focusing distance and all that stuff for TTL flash. And then on top of that, you can even connect a microphone. We've got audio connections right here inside of the multi-interface shoe. And you can, on this particular model, as well as the Alpha 7S3, you can connect a digital microphone, which we have, I think, 3 new ones, which it has an analog to digital converter inside the microphone. And then it sends the signal as a digital signal all the way down till it gets embedded into the file. And it's really important because once it's digitized, there's less opportunity for noise and clicks and hisses and all these other things that happen because of electrical or magnetic signals, kind of swirling around in our environment to mess up the audio. And we know audio Sony was built on audio. So we know audio is a really, really important component of, shooting video as well. And so, you got to have really great audio. And so we make it easy. We try to make it easy to have really great audio. I've even plugged, we make a wireless lav pack, which I'm actually using right here, right now, right? And we make a little adapter that'll fit on top of the hot shoe so that you can put the receiver on it. And we make single channel and dual channel receivers. And then you pair one of these guys up, and then you can mic up and a subject and then do an interview or do, a talking piece or something like that, right, through the hot shoe of the microphone. No extra little cables coming down. And even there's power even being sent through this little hot shoe. So when you mount the receiver up here, you don't even have to have the AA batteries inside the pack. It'll actually power the receiver off of the hot shoe. So as long as the camera's rolling, you know your microphone's working. And you just got to worry about this part. But that's one thing that, whenever I was working with at a lot of the NPPA workshops, if you bring a Shure mic or you bring a Rode mic or something, you gotta always throw some fresh batteries in there. You never trust old batteries, right? Throw some fresh batteries in there. And so you just burn through batteries all the time. But now it's like, well, the camera has a battery, and if it's not rolling video, then what's the point of the mic rolling? So you connect those two together, and now you'll always have a microphone power if you have power in your camera.
Especially if you shoot off that juice pack too, and plug in USB-C.
Exactly. I've got one here. Yeah, but this is not the USB-C one. It's hiding, I'm sure.
Yeah. I've got one of those digital mics too. I really like it. I really like it. I gotta look into one of those lavs, but I got 2 different lav kits that I just feel like, how much money am I gonna spend? But
yeah. And I'll be honest, they're not cheap. They're not the cheap ones, but man, these things last a long time and they are so reliable.
mm-hmm.
I've used some of those other cheaper ones, and the sound quality is not anywhere near the Sonys, and then you just can't trust them sometimes.
So,
I really love it.
I hear you. I'm trying to find something here. I did shoot a little video. I don't know how long this is. Let me see something here. Whoops, it's switched. I don't know, maybe I can share. I haven't even really watched it yet, but I was at a vigil yesterday for a transgender woman who was murdered in her apartment, and everybody came together to remember her. And somebody started singing, so I just quickly threw the mic on and just rolled. I haven't looked at it, y'all. I haven't looked at it yet, but I just found it. Maybe I can share my screen and see, how the sound was at least. Is that possible?
Yeah, you should be able to.
Let's see here. Okay.
I would like to see it too. Yeah.
Photo mechanic. Let me see if it's this one. And
Yeah, that's just the type of situation, we're talking about a lot of times is you go into a sensitive situation where you really don't want to draw attention to yourself. So, having a more compact camera kit, having kind of more of a compact, build out can be a real advantage. And then if you have a camera that's capable of silent shutter, and the lighting is okay, like this camera, you can really be a fly on the wall when you're doing your thing and not drawing attention away from, the solemnness of the moment, which that sounds like a really kind of that situation.
So I'm not sure what's going to happen here, because when I went to share my screen, I had to allow it to record, and it said it won't allow me to record until I quit Zoom. So, but I'll share my screen anyway. I don't know what's going to happen, if it'll share or not, but let's give it a try.
All right.
All right, here we go. And share. And can y'all see it?
Yep.
Oops, I went over the wrong way. There we go. That's that digital mic and a really shaky handhold, but that's what warp stabilizers for.
Yep.
So it sounded like there was a little bit of hum, but that could have been someone's car running right at the end. But it was pretty rich, I think. Let me stop sharing.
Do you remember which microphone you were using?
It's not the big one, it's the little one. Don't ask me a model number. Thank you for whoever helped me stop sharing.
All good.
I think there's one with XLR jacks. It's not that one.
Not that one.
And Andre, the person was wearing a mic, right?
I'm sorry?
The person was wearing the mic. You put it.
No, that's the mic on top of the camera.
Oh
That's
wow.
the external
Okay.
mic. Yeah, it's that one. It's that one there.
Oh man,
There you go.
the
That
little
that was-
shotgun.
Yeah, that's got the extra controls on the back of it, right? No, it wasn't that one.
No.
It's one more. It's one more.
Ah.
Is it the one that kind of looks like a V,
A V.
sort of at the end? At the end, it kind of has like two.
No.
Okay.
It's got controls on the back there.
Yeah, we've got one that's a little bit bigger on the back because it has built-in like noise canceling
Yeah.
and different audio pickup patterns
Mhm.
and manual control. This one's a more basic one, which is just a zoom mic. So you've got gun mode, which is just a real narrow, straightforward pickup. And then you have zoom mode, which will kind of fan out. I don't know how to show it, but it'll fan out. But as you zoom in, it narrows the field of pickup. And yeah, you can see on the bottom of it, the bottom looks the same. You've got little pins here on the bottom of the microphones. And all those little pins will connect with the pins that are inside of the hot shoe here.
And those pins also come with a cover to kind of protect them.
Yeah, so it does come with
Yeah.
a cover for the foot as well as the hot shoe. And then that's all you have to do. You don't have to worry about a microphone battery, right? Because it's going to pull the battery, pull power from the hot shoe here. And once I hit, record, then the automatic gain control inside the camera will adjust. On this particular one, it doesn't have a manual override, so I just have to trust the auto gain. But on Andre's, his is the newer one. I want to say it's called the B1M or something like that. I think we call it by short. And that one has more advanced controls, and then of course the ability to cancel noise as well. And that is a digital mic. This one is not. This is an analog mic. This one I think retails for about $100. The one that Andre has is a little bit more because again, it does a lot more functions. But yeah, it's a fantastic mic. If you've tried any of the Sony noise canceling headphones, which are, by the way, amazing. That same noise cancellation technology that was developed in that group was passed over to our accessory group to make the noise canceling version of this, this microphone. And that's, again, also kind of points to another strength that Sony has, is that, we do have all these different parts of the company where we can kind of pull from different technologies. The eye autofocusing that we've got now in our cameras, we actually had that in TVs a while back. And what would happen is, the TV has a little camera built into it, and it would notice like, oh, you're sitting real far to the left. Maybe the armchair that you like is way over there. I'm going to change the balance of the audio so it's more balanced for you.
Get out.
Yeah. And then it would say, oh, you know what? You're sitting in front of a window or something. Maybe it's like really backlit. So it would bring the brightness of the screen up. And so pretty cool stuff. I think we kind of got away from that because of privacy, concerns and stuff like that. People were kind of like, oh, I don't know. But I don't know if I want my camera, watching me while I'm watching TV. But, that type of stuff was tried. And we did a lot of that. So, some technologies that are developed in the audio, world, like this noise cancellation algorithms and stuff, we figure out a way to apply that into our products and vice versa.
Well, one of the things that I really like about this digital mic is that I don't like to shoot stills with a microphone bobbling around on top of my camera. And typically, if I'm shooting stills, I'm shooting stills. I don't shoot stills and video at the same time. I only threw the mic on to really just test it actually for this type of stuff. But the beauty of it though, is that in order to just switch the video and know that I was gonna have good sound, it's just pull that mic off and throw it on. There's no fumbling, there's no boom, it's on. I don't have to hit a switch. There's no, I forgot to turn it on. There's no, I can't get the plug in. She's still singing. It's just pull it out of my bag, put it on, and hit record. And so if you are the type of photographer / videographer who has to do both on assignment, then to me, that whole digital mic thing is invaluable. I mean, no cables, no nothing, amazing audio. So it definitely another one of the features that had me looking at switching in the first place.
Yeah,
This
pretty
has
awesome.
been great, guys. We're gonna start wrapping this up soon. This has been really great. I really want to thank you, Andre and Van, for anything. Anybody has any last minute thoughts before we close out? But this has been really a good conversation.
Nice. Well, yeah, thank you again for everybody. If you're watching this now live or you're watching it, once it's been recorded and everything, we appreciate what you do out there every day, bringing the news, bringing the truth to everybody, and hope that you'll consider Sony for your next purchases. The Alpha 7C is absolutely a fantastic camera for a lot of situations. Not every situation, but again, one of those tools that you can absolutely use in your arsenal.
Yeah, thanks for having me again, you guys. I do appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Andre. Thanks, Danielle.
Thank you so much. And for everybody out there, just make sure you check out MPPA for more series like this and workshops and so forth. So, and make sure you check out, we have a survey link in there so we can better improve the series as well. Well, thanks, guys. Have a great night.